So it's quite funny if you think about the Australian city. I remember in 2008 spending my very first day in the Melbourne CBD. I had a hotel for one night in the CBD, so I just had a day of nothing before university started. So I walked around in the CBD, and you go like, oh, that's the CBD. Lots of very high buildings. It's kind of nice. You walk around, you get it, and you walk out of the CBD, and you immediately enter suburbia. You enter quarter-acre blocks. This is Carlton. You go, why is this next to the CBD? It makes no sense from a European perspective, where you traditionally in a European city, you would have a CBD where buildings are a bit higher. Then you'd have a big middle ring of suburbs where you have 3 to 4 to 5 stories buildings, and then you enter suburbia. In Australia, we skip the middle. It's the missing middle of Australian cities. So that's a very special way that our cities function. Our cities in Australia have one central CBD, and then you move straight into suburbia. We talk a lot about secondary employment clusters, and I remember when Plan Melbourne came out, the big strategic planning document for Melbourne. I was in a room full of planning professionals and geographers and whatnot, and I spoke up in favor of the plan, said, I love Plan Melbourne. It's a really great document because it pushes the idea of secondary employment hubs, of taking jobs away from the CBD, opening them up in Frankston, in Footscray, in Box Hill, just really spreading the load. It's best urban planning practice. And I said, it's great. I really like the document. The lesson here being that urban planning can do only so much in order to motivate jobs to go this way. If we wish to move jobs to the outer suburbs, then at the same time, opening up the CBD and doubling it in size, what we've done in Melbourne is we created the Docklands. In Sydney, we added Barangaroo. So we added the nicest, fattest bit of the CBD on top. And then we wonder why the secondary employment hubs don't work. So that doesn't work. Now with COVID, all of a sudden, there's this real chance that the distribution of jobs work differently. And then people will move to different spots and places. And the one exemption from this rule of our big cities is Brisbane. And from an urban planning perspective, we wouldn't talk about Brisbane. We would talk about Southeast Queensland. There's this big continuous urban mass that includes the Gold Coast, the Sunshine Coast, and Brisbane. The local mayors, who they run their own fiefdoms. They wouldn't like to hear this. But essentially, it's one mass. It's this long city with 3 CBDs and several airports. So you have a nice connectivity into the big urban mass from different points, which is why the house price pressure isn't as concentrated in Southeast Queensland as it is in the other big cities. So that's, it's just a freak coincidence or a historical coincidence, if you will, that Brisbane grew this way, but they're now benefiting from it. Traffic in Brisbane is much less horrible than it is in Sydney or Melbourne.